Yo, what's going on, everybody? Dave Lochran with Stochastic Fantasy Football, joined by Matt Gajewski for the first time this year. We're doing an underdog draft together. Really happy about it. Now, we had talked about doing a certain strategy, right? Like, do we go into something with a specific strategy or do we not? And Matt and I have kind of always decided that a lot of times you want to let what's there fall to you and go with a value approach, not worry about like, oh, I got to go zero RB here. Yeah, what if someone good falls to you? I got to go late round quarterback or late round tight end. So with that in mind, we're going to see what type of build we come up with. We're drafting out of the 11 spot. The draft is just underway, and I'm looking forward to it. What's going on, man? I'm happy to be back with you doing a draft.
I know, man. It's been over 6 months. I think the last content we did together maybe was the Super Bowl or something like that. Loving doing these drafts. And I agree with you entirely. I don't want to come into these drafts with a specific strategy. I kind of want to let the draft dictate what happens. And then if I end up with zero RB or some sort of bully quarterback strategy, something like that, that's just the way the draft goes. And we can get into all that as we see what this draft gives us.
Yeah. And then I will post title this video for whatever approach we end up going with, but just know out of the gate that we don't have anything specific in mind. This is, hey, once we see what falls to us, maybe through the first 1, 2, or 3 rounds, then you can really start formulating an approach here. We don't need to go off the deep end and say, I need to do this, I need to do that. A lot of times that just ends in that. Dude, is there anything worse than, I mean, it's great when I see people do it in drafts that I'm in, but there's nothing worse than thinking like, I have to go into it with this approach. And then you see all these amazing players falling to you that go completely against your approach, and you stick with your approach, which ends up killing you in the end.
That's happened to me a couple times, and I've kind of just foregone that entirely. Like I'm going to do enough drafts. I'll end up with zero RB teams. I'll end up with teams that are RB heavy in the top. It's all going to come to me as long as you're doing multiple drafts. So I'm trying to get away from that frustrating approach that previously I'd fallen victim to.
For sure. Me too. And I feel like my drafts, we'll see at the end of the year, but I feel like they've ended a lot better for me. Now, we had 3 running backs go in a row, McCaffrey, Eckler, and Robinson. Then Kelsey, Diggs. So we're going to be on the clock after Moorah goes, and we're going to have, man, I said to you before we started this stream, I've loved drafting at the 10, the 11, and the 12 this year. A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adams. We're going to be able to get 2 of these guys. Who do you want to go with first?
My favorite is A.J. Brown of this group. It's a group I really like altogether, so I'm happy we're going to end up with 2 of these guys. But you just have a great attachment to the most explosive quarterback in the NFL right now.
For sure. And it's funny because depending on where you're drafting, whether it's DraftKings, Underdog, Drafters, all of these best ball sites, A.J. Brown I've seen going as high as 8. Getting him at 11 feels like a good spot. And now it comes back to us. CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown go. But we still have Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. Now, I'm fine with either one. I think Garrett Wilson has a monster year in Green Bay. He tweaked his ankle. I'm assuming it's a sprain. He'll be fine. You like Wilson or Adams here? I'm 100% happy with either of these guys.
Yeah, I've got a slight preference to Wilson as well. I think there's a little more upside with the offense getting Rodgers, whereas Adams going to be dealing with Garoppolo. And I think both of them are target monsters.
So okay, and this is exactly what I mean. We end up in the picking 11th. The 1-2, we get Brown and Garrett Wilson. Would you agree, though, that if you're drafting later, if you're picking out of like the 10, 11, or 12, it does lend to going to double tapping stud wide receivers early just on the way the board works?
Yeah, I agree with you. And if we use the guy who just drafted after us, for example, he took Saquon Barkley. When he comes back around in round 3 or maybe early 4, he's going to have players like Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, some pretty stud running backs on the board. Now, there's some contractual issues with some of them, but when you look at receiver in that same area, it's not quite the same talent that you're getting at the top. The talents like CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson will be all dried up, and you're taking somewhat of a risk, whether that's like a Christian Kirk type or whatever it is. But to your point, I like the look of my team at the end of the draft a little bit better when I double tap receiver from that 11-12 spot.
Me too. It looks like that guy went robust running back. He went Nick Chubb with his first pick over all those receivers.
And I love Nick Chubb in a vacuum, but that late round, or I guess I should say late draft order pick at 12 now for him, or 10, whatever he was, when he comes back around to receiver, I'm not sure he's going to like the board.
I agree. That's kind of the issue you run into. That's a really odd spot, and we're going to see it now. I mean, I love Nick Chubb as well, and I think Barkley, we know he's going to play. He's in position to have a great year. I know that you have Daniel Jones ranked higher than a lot of other people too. So my guess is that you feel decent about this Giants offense this year.
Yeah, I like the Giants offense a lot. Dable did a ton with almost nothing last year. And Daniel Jones had a career year efficiency wise. He runs. They severely upgraded that receiver room. And you can add Darren Waller into that conversation as well. They should be a lot better on offense. Offensive line's looking better. Saquon, all the contractual stuff figured out. Pretty optimistic with Daniel Jones. And I like him a little bit more than some of the other players that go in that range. Like Dak Prescott is dealing with the opposite. Mike McCarthy, he's torpedoed offenses more often than he's elevated them. So as far as alternatives go, I think Daniel Jones is pretty clearly one of the better options in that range, which trickles down to the rest of the Giants offense.
So let's take a peek at what you were saying here. We're into the third round, and drafting on Underdog Fantasy, for those of you who aren't there yet, $15 million prize pool in the Best Ball Mania 4. It's huge. But they also have the puppy draft, which is $5 to enter, even smaller ones too for less entry, with hundreds of $1,000s in prize pool. Link in the description for both of those. For Underdog, if you're looking to get first match deposit bonus, 100% up to $100. So if you put $100 in and you wanted to get 4 drafts in for Best Ball Mania 4, the one that we're doing now, you now have 8 drafts. That's the simplest way to look at it. Like if you're trying to stretch your best ball dollar as far as you can, get the deposit bonus, double your entry, double your bankroll out of the gate. And now instead of 4 entries, you've got 8. So check it out. Link in the description and in the pinned comment. But man, you make a salient point here. Look at wide receivers. I do, by the way, like Amari Cooper a lot this year with Deshaun Watson, another year removed from not playing. But then it's like Debo, Keenan Allen, Jerry Jeudy's ADP, I'm not going to lie, is strange to me, and that's not someone I'm getting a ton of. Christian Watson, Drake London, these are your receivers right now as far as ADP goes.
Yeah, and our friend ahead of us is going to have to struggle with one of them. I have a tier break after Keenan, and I believe ahead of Jeudy is where the tier break is for me. But it looks like our friend's going to get one of them. But I mean, conversely, look at running back. We've got some really good options up here.
It's so deep this year. And how much of that do you think? Actually, hold off on that. Let's make our next pick, and then I have a question for you that I think could kind of crystallize what we've been looking at as far as ADPs go this year.
My pick here would be Lamar if I was making it. I don't think he comes back to us, and he's the last of the elite tier quarterbacks. And I think there's a chance we get Jacobs. If we don't, we get an elite running back either way.
All right, let's do it. Now, my pick, and we can go Lamar here. I have no problem. My pick probably would be Jacobs, just going that he's falling to this point. And I still think with these guys, there's a higher likelihood that they end up playing than they don't.
I agree with you.
Yeah, right? Like weird things happen. And if that's the case that Jacobs doesn't play, then we're SOL. But if he comes back around, I think we've got to go Jacobs there.
Agree. I think he's going to play too. I mean, we learned from Melvin Gordon how these contractual disputes go for running backs, and it doesn't go well.
Ever. And I know all of these other running backs are behind them, right? Like Eckler and Henry and all these guys. We've got him. If you want to, I say we take him, dude.
I 100% agree.
And this is what we're talking about, where if guys fall, you don't have to love Josh Jacobs here. I get it. But this is the RB2 last year, RB3, RB1 in standard format. We're now loaded with Lamar, Josh Jacobs, and we can stack Lamar with some Zay Flowers and some other guys later at pretty low draft capital. A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson, that's a pretty nice start.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I'm not concerned about Jacobs missing time. Just from previous running back holdouts, it's almost the worst case scenario for them if they sit out. You're foregoing money in one of the prime years of your career, which running backs don't have a lot. So Jacobs, what is he going to do? Like miss the $10 million in the franchise tag, not sit out this year, be a year older, get paid less money down the line? I don't see it. So I think he does play. I would be shocked if he doesn't.
Look at all the running backs that have attempted that, and it's exploded in their faces.
Le'Veon, Melvin Gordon, most recently.
Yep.
Yeah, it's bad.
Sure, there haven't been a ton, but the ones I can think of, which are those, it ended really bad.
Yeah, I mean, the guys behind him were Eckler and James Conner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even
Ruined
think
it
about
for him.
that. Yeah. It was a springboard for their own careers.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you can't be given, and it sucks the way the CBA is negotiated. We don't have to get into that here, but there's just no leverage for Jacobs and these other running backs on the franchise tag.
I'm not one to handcuff generally in underdog or best ball formats. Um, it's different in fantasy football, but at the same time, even that can be a tough time in season long because you might only have 16 rounds and one guy you're just drafting to not really play. Would you consider drafting Zamir White here late in this draft because we have the kind of ambiguous situation with Josh Jacobs as our RB1?
For best ball, I kind of treat this like, where are they going in the draft? What is the capital I'm spending on them? Jacobs now is a 4th-round pick for us. That's not quite as much as he had been going. This guy was a 2nd-round pick before these contract disputes.
Yep.
But Zamir, I mean, he doesn't get drafted a lot of the time. So you're not really spending anything on him. In that situation, I'm okay with a handcuff. If it was like, I don't know, 2 Miami backs or 2 Kansas City backs, I'd probably avoid it. But because Zamir White is dirt cheap, I don't see an issue with that.
Me neither. And on DraftKings where it's 20 rounds, he's always drafted, but it's like 18th round. You know, it's late, 18th, 19th round. You're getting him very late there. Underdog's 18 rounds. You're right. We might just be able to grab him last round. We'll see.
And this might be a change because since the Jacobs news, I'm sure he's getting drafted a lot more frequently. I've been doing drafts all throughout the summer, and he definitely was not getting drafted earlier.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. Recently, you've seen it creep up, but you're right. Before he wasn't.
That makes sense.
If you guys are wondering why you don't want to handcuff usually in best ball, it's because you're already spending so much draft capital on some of these top tier guys. And then your bench players are guys that you're hoping, can have some of those big spike weeks that can blow up for you. You're kind of killing a roster spot one way or the other, drafting a handcuff in most cases. So that's why I asked Matt about that. Do you think the fact that everybody has bought so heavily in to the zero RB approach and wide receiver early, do you think that has a lot to do with why there's so many good running backs this year later in the draft? Or do you think there's just more good running backs?
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. There is a wide receiver fever, especially from some of the scores we saw put up last year. But I'll kind of pause this because I see we're coming up.
Yep. So for anyone that hasn't seen it, we have Lamar, Josh Jacobs, A.J. Brown, and Garrett Wilson. So I'm okay at a lot of different spots here, Matt. I don't have an issue going receiver, running back, or tight end, although it's only really George Kittle that would be our guy here. Who do you like?
I'm fine with any of Johnson, Godwin, or Kittle.
I don't have a lot of Deontay Johnson this year. Let's go with him. I need to add a little bit of that.
He was the highest on my board, and we can talk about that after we make our second pick.
Okay.
Because we're going to get a good running back or maybe Kittle here. Or a good receiver if we want to hit our 4th.
So let's see what.
Oh, did it? So we just saw. No. There's Kittle. Yeah.
I still think it's possible that. So we're picking 62nd, right? And then we pick 83rd. I think it's still possible that we would land like a Darren Waller or somebody there, some decent. And
yeah, I think it's possible too. I'm not locked in on the Kittle pick by any means.
Jacobs, man, our wide receivers look great.
They do.
Who do we have at running back? We could go Dobbins here. I still think he plays. Kittle, Sanders.
I'm probably going to break the tie and say Sanders because we already have Lamar.
All right. Yeah, good call. Let's go Sanders. I would have been fine with Kittle there too, by the way.
Yeah, same. We're basically just splitting hairs, but this kind of ties in with your handcuff talk. I think the easiest way I try to break this down for people is when you're playing these tournaments that have millions of dollars up top, like Best Ball Mania 4, you're essentially trying to create like an 18 leg parlay And by handcuffing, especially if you're using handcuffs that have decent draft capital, you're basically already ruining one of those legs.
Yep.
Because if your starter hits his ceiling, your backup's not hitting their ceiling. And you really need ceiling performances to win these things. It's insane how that happens. And to the Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins thing, if Lamar hits his ceiling, a lot of that probably comes on the ground at the expense of J.K. Dobbins. So that's some negative correlation I'm trying to avoid if possible. But, if like J.K. is a huge value, he was pretty close to that there, then I'd be willing to eat it.
What about like a Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift then?
You bring up a great point because DeAndre Swift catches passes and he does so really well. J.K. Dobbins, I think, can do it, but he hasn't been asked to at this point.
Yeah, maybe under Todd Monken he does, but we don't know.
Yeah, I was literally just going there. New OC, that could be something that happens in the future. They don't really have a specific pass catching back. Gus Edwards isn't going to do it. If they throw to the RB more, you would think it's Dobbins.
Yeah, I would. You know what I've been doing a lot of too? I've really just been loading up, especially on teams where I'm not insanely confident at wide receiver, because one of the reasons you want to go with a lot of wide receivers, you have to start 3 of them. You only have to start 2 running backs. So each week, you're not setting your lineup. You're not making trades. There's no waiver wire moves. You want to make sure that you have enough good wide receivers. Matt, I've been loading up on a lot of young or rookie wide receivers that are, in essence, unproven on teams with completely ambiguous pass catching cores, like teams where there's no bona fide number 1 wide receiver. Even Kansas City, like you're getting so many of these guys so late behind Travis Kelce. Am I going into this? I did a video on it the other day with the mindset that I know I'm going to hit. Obviously not. And in all likelihood, I'm not going to be right. But at least I'm saying he's on a great offense. Behind Kelce, there's nobody. Like there's nobody that's guaranteed. And Kadarius Toney's hurt now. Even in New York with like a Jalen Hyatt or with some of these other young guys. Houston, we have no idea who it's going to be. Carolina, Jonathan Mingo. I mean, Adam Thielen and in the twilight of his career and DJ Shark. There's a lot of teams right now where you're getting receivers, young receivers late in the draft. And for all we know, they just might end up being the guy this year.
Yeah, the data backs you up on these rookie receivers. And to your point, they miss a lot of the time, but a lot of the times they hit too. And if you're doing multiple drafts here, especially in tournaments like Best Ball Mania 4, some of your teams are just going to suck, whether that's because of injury or you take a flyer on a guy who has upside, but he just doesn't hit for whatever reason. Some of those teams are going to get burned. But at the same time, when you're taking that approach, you're going to find players that are severely underdrafted. And rookies are often that. These are players that generally ascend throughout their season, so they're playing well when it matters. The playoffs, you need that, and that takes some time. We've seen it with a ton of guys in the past. So it's a strategy I love and a strategy I'm taking. And you mentioned a lot of great situations, and hopefully we can attack some of those a little later in the draft.
Yeah, and don't you think too that sometimes I go into it looking at it like if I hit just one of these guys and he ends up having a huge rookie season, like an AJ Brown rookie season. I won't go to Justin Jefferson rookie season because that's clearly an outlier, but even a Chris Olave or a Garrett Wilson rookie season, and you're getting these guys in the 15th, 16th round. Sometimes if your starting lineup performs well, you only need to hit on one of those to have a big season and your team looks outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
All right. So Rachaad White's still on the board. Swift is still on the board. Connor. Those are our running backs. It's not horrible. Not saying we need to go there. There goes James Conner. Wide receiver, Tony, Brandon Cooks I like a lot this year in Dallas. Elijah Moore, Zay Flowers isn't going to come back to us. Would you, if we got 2 picks in the next 4, what do you want to do here? I don't, Flowers is being drafted early, but he seems like right now he's the guy, and Bateman's still dealing with injuries. I feel like the next pick, we should probably try and get him.
Yeah, I would take one of the Ravens receivers with one of these picks and then one of the running backs with one of these picks. I prefer White in this range, but I'm comfortable with Swift as well.
All right, let's go Rachaad White. I'll be pissed if it doesn't come back to us on Flowers, but
I think Bateman's fine too. I agree with you on Flowers. just because Bateman's injury right now. But
Right. Well, I mean, this guy has 5 wide receivers, right? So my hope was that, and now he took a run. Okay, there we go. That's what I was hoping for. He was loaded at receiver.
yeah, we're in a great spot. We can get our Lamar stack.
Yep. Normally, and I don't know about you, but if we weren't trying to complete a stack, normally I would definitely go Cooks there first.
Agreed. And I would even consider double running back. So we just saw Rashad White go. Javonte Williams is practicing with the team already, which is awesome. And we had DeAndre Swift available too. And circling all the way back to the beginning of the draft, double tapping receivers early. Look at the running backs we have available to us right now. And we don't need to be aggressive with the position because we actually have a pretty well-balanced team so far. But I mean, like, some of the running backs that just went off the board, if they're your RB2, no qualms with that whatsoever.
Yeah. Not only did we double tap receiver, we took Lamar Jackson as well early.
Yeah, that's true.
If I was loaded up and let's say, we did go with a Kittle over a running back there. So we would have had Lamar Jackson, Josh Jacobs, and we would have had AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, and say Kittle. And then whoever else. I wouldn't have even hated having James Cook as my RB2 because he's on one of the most, he's on an offense that's finished top 3 in scoring in 3 straight seasons under Josh Allen. Yes, there's Damian Harris. I get it. But man, what if James Cook takes over all of the pass catching duties from Singletary? Probably will. Nyheim Hines is done for the year already, so he's a non-factor there. I do think the floor is lower on Cook, but as you're saying, 18-leg parlay, I think the ceiling on James Cook is very high this year where he's being drafted around that 90 ADP.
Yeah, I've got a lot of him and Damian Harris. It's a little unsettled. I do think Cook handles the pass down work, but I'm trying to bet on Buffalo. Like, I just want pieces of Buffalo's offense. And I agree with you. Cook, I think, is the best bet there. But I'm also taking Harris because if I'm wrong, I don't want to just completely miss out on that Buffalo situation. So I'm actually pretty overweight to both backs right now.
Me too. I've liked Harris, especially in spots where I'm getting him as like maybe I go 2 running backs early and then I have to load up on receivers. Harris has been falling to me a lot as like that RB3 or 4 guy that I just kind of have to get in and hope that he becomes the goal line back in Buffalo, which I think is very plausible.
I think this draft for us also is setting up pretty well for maybe we'll have like a late round tight end strategy, which honestly, I think this is maybe the best year for late round tight ends that I can remember. There's so many players that are in like just locked in situations. So as much as I like getting, and we still have some of the elite tight ends on the board, we'll see if we get one. But if we miss on one, I'm not kicking myself too hard, whereas in previous seasons I would be.
Agreed. Yeah, there's a lot more this year, because when you look at the top guys, you have Kelsey, you have Mark Andrews. I love Mark Andrews this year. I have a lot of them, especially when I'm drafting in that middle spot, like 6 or 7. I keep landing on Mark Andrews, specifically on DraftKings too. But Hawkinson is now like semi-elite territory with where he's being drafted. So there's a handful of them. And then it just leaves you a lot of good stuff later on. Where are you at on Okonkwo now that DeAndre Hopkins is in town?
I actually don't hate Chig, but he's a player I generally pass on because I'm very comfortable with some of the alternatives that come off the board a few rounds later. I think there's a range here. You've got guys like Kincaid, Dulcich, Chig Okonkwo, where you're making a pretty big gamble on these guys, taking a step forward, when you can also make similar gambles a little bit later in equally as productive offenses or better. I mean, players like Irv Smith go much later than those players up at the top, and I actually like their situations better.
Man, Breece Hall went at 31.
Yeah, I don't know if that guy knows about Dalvin Cook yet.
I don't think he does either.
That's brutal.
Yeah, that's tough. Where would you be comfortable taking Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook? Assuming Dalvin Cook signs with him.
I'd rather have Rashad White, dude.
Yeah.
Like by James Cook, probably.
I would definitely rather have James Cook. But I mean, with Breece Hall, now it's, do they just ease him into action real slowly and just, he doesn't play hardly at all through the first however many weeks? I mean, a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick right now, I don't even know if I'd go. I probably wouldn't even go 5th-round pick on Breece Hall. I don't know if I would.
I'd rather have Akers, Sanders. We just don't know when he's going to play.
It sucks though, because I just think he's amazing.
Yeah, I do too. I love him. All right. We're coming up in what, 2 picks?
Yeah, we're up in 2 picks. Interesting, because Cortland Sutton is still there. Insane that now he's gone. I was gonna say, insane that like Cortland Sutton's right next to Tyler Boyd. You have Njoku and you have Freiermuth. Any interest in those guys?
Yeah, I like it. I like Njoku a lot. I actually have him as like the last tight end in the elite tier.
I like
not elite tier, but the last tight end in the tier.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Let's go David Njoku here. I think that's a nice add. And then our team starts to look pretty good. I mean,
we have a lot of balance.
Lamar and some upside too, though.
For sure.
Like Jacobs in the 4th. Sanders, Rachaad White. Those are 3 nice running backs. But then we have A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Zay Flowers completing that stack. Maybe we get one more if we can, with maybe even like an Isaiah Likely. I don't hate that at all.
Me either. Now we're back up.
All right. Has Tony fallen far enough yet?
I'm fine with him here.
I am too, man. And here's why. Or do you want to go Odell Beckham?
I'd rather have Tony.
Here's why I like Tony here. Kadarius Toney is a risk. He's dealing with that knee again. But we already knew all the hype surrounding him before this. He was going like, I saw him being drafted as early as 65 in some spots, Matt. We just got him at 110. Would you rather play it safe where you're trying to win millions of dollars with like a Tyler Boyd or an Odell Beckham? Or would you rather go, maybe I have the wide receiver 1 in Kansas City and I'm getting him at 110? To me, it's just kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, I honestly don't have anything else to add, especially when we already have Lamar Jackson stacked. So we didn't need to prioritize that. And honestly, I think we got him with a better stacking partner. I'd rather have Zay Flowers than Odell Beckham. There were rumors recently that Odell Beckham was considering retiring for good. Now we have the flashy rookie, and we already went through that conversation. We're looking to bet on young players in ascending offenses. And I love Lamar Jackson as a talented quarterback. Todd Monken's going to push the ball downfield in this new offense. That's exactly what Flowers does. So he's the preferred stacking option I wanted. We didn't have to make that decision with Beckham. As far as Tony goes, we're trying to win millions of dollars, man. Like that's the goal here. So he fits that bill entirely.
Yeah. Tyler Boyd is not winning you millions of dollars. Even if like Jamar Chase or Higgins go down, obviously he sees a big boost, but it's still Tyler Boyd. So
yeah, we're not winning the millie.
No. All right. So here's what we got so far in order through our first, how many picks did we make? Through our first 10 picks. A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, double tap receiver, drafting out of the 10 spot or the 11 spot. We went Lamar next. Then we got Josh Jacobs in the 4th. Deontay Johnson in the 5th to round out our starting 3 receivers. Miles Sanders, double tap running back here with Rachaad White. I kind of love that.
Me too.
Zay Flowers to get our one piece to Lamar stack. I still think we could get Likely later, and that's like a nice little spot, especially if Andrews goes down. I'll talk to you about that in a second. Get your thoughts. David Njoku for our first tight end, and then Kadarius Toney.
I love it. It's really balanced so far.
What do we need?
One thing I always try to tell people to watch is the quarterback market. It's wild, and sometimes these guys come off the board way higher than ADP. So that's just something I always kind of keep my finger on, just like where the quarterback's going, because we don't want to be stuck with Will Levis or something as our second quarterback. No. And it looks like we're in a pretty good spot right now. I see you just pulled up the available players. So I don't think we're in any rush for a QB. Outside of that, I think we just take some value and then look for maybe a secondary stack. Running back, I think, is okay a little later on. So I'm not in any rush to take one of those either.
I'll be honest with you, though. I would take Rodgers if he falls to us. We have Garrett Wilson. If you're into the week 17 stacks, we have David Njoku. If Rodgers falls, I would grab Aaron Rodgers here.
Agreed. I think he's going to have a big year in New York. Best receiving core he's played with in, 5 years at least?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually for the first time looking forward to watching Hard Knocks. I never watched that anymore.
Dude, last year's was so good.
Was it?
Yeah, it was the Lions, Dan Campbell.
Oh, I love Dan Campbell too. Why did I not watch that?
If you should go back and watch it, it is really entertaining. And I used to dislike it too for a couple of years.
You know what I did do though? I shorted the hell out of them in preseason betting because people, and even the line was starting to move because people were so hyped on the Lions that they from Hard Knocks that they were betting them in the preseason. And you know how that usually works.
I mean, preseason was volatile as hell, and that team was putting so much together last year. That was a great idea. I do not agree with Russell Wilson going this early.
Me neither. Unless I have Judy and Sutton, then I'm grabbing him. All right, let's take Rodgers here. I actually love getting this with Garrett Wilson.
Same. Love it. Week
We're
17
getting him at
stack.
131.
Now, where do we go is the question.
Yeah, okay. So we have we're done on quarterbacks.
Yep.
We have 2 quarterbacks. We have a tight end. We have 5 receivers. So my thinking is probably wide receiver here. If there's a decent one.
I like Rondale. I also really like Damian Harris.
Can we get some other? I think we can take some shots on some receivers later. Some of these young guys we were talking about and grab Damian Harris here.
Yeah, completely fine with that. Loved it with Damian Harris. We actually already talked about him. He wasn't even on our team.
Yep, let's do it. You know, usually when I do these drafts and we're recording them and it's with somebody, I look at them after and I go, yeah, I don't love it. I really like this draft so far.
Me too. It's solid. We're balanced too. I know we were supposed to come up with a strategy.
I think the strategy was just double tap wide receiver, get some good running backs. We got lucky with Jacobs, in my opinion. I think he still went too late. I think a lot of these guys did. I think Tony went too late. And then late round tight end. I don't know. We got him at the 107.
Value-based drafting at its finest.
That's 100% what this is.
We'll see what we do late. Maybe we find something late.
You know, to your point about quarterbacks, and I couldn't agree with you more, that you have no idea if a quarterback's going to be there or not from draft to draft, and ADP almost means nothing. It's like it's so frenetic every time you draft. And that's really just because people are desperate to complete their stacks, so they reach a couple rounds on a guy, or nobody has the stack pieces, or they don't know about the stack pieces, and then they don't take that quarterback. So you have no idea if someone's going to reach 2 rounds early or if he's going to go 2 rounds after his ADP.
Quarterback is the wildest in terms of volatility and where these players go. I've done a couple drafts where I'm largely referring to ADP for these guys and then ending up with players like Will Levis, which those drafts are probably lost mistakes. But now I'm keeping a closer eye on where the quarterbacks are going. This is more of, your normal. It's following ADP a little closer, but just for future reference, if you're playing on Underdog, keep your eyes on that. Sometimes you do see them come off the board quicker than you think.
It's happened to me, I think, twice so far. And I looked at it. I was drafting in the 11 or 12 spot. Maybe it was the 1 or 2, but you get the point. You still have a long way to go before it comes back to you. And I looked and I was like, man, there's still 8 quarterbacks on the board. I'll get one of these guys just as my bye week filler. I had an elite quarterback, so I wanted to wait. It's like a Jalen Hurts or a Josh Allen. I wanted to wait to grab a second one. By the time it came back to me, I don't think anybody was left.
That's happened to me multiple times too. But one thing that's actually happened a couple times is I accidentally draft 2 quarterbacks with the same buy, and then I'm like, oh, damn.
I've done that too.
Now I need a third one, and then all of them go, and then suddenly I'm stuck with Will Levis.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, who might not be starting. I've done that a couple times too.
Yeah, just dumb brain, quick moments.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, shit, did I just stack 2 teams with the same buy? All my starters? Yeah, it happens. Sometimes your eyes light up because you see a quarterback still on the board that shouldn't be, and you just grab him before looking at the bye week. It's the only time I really care about bye weeks is with my 2 quarterbacks or tight ends.
Right. Usually it's Daniel Jones for me.
Yeah. All right, so we're coming up in 3 again. We're super balanced so far. 5 wide receivers, and that Tony upside in the 10th round is significant if he ends up coming back and being 100%. 4 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and a tight end. Do we want to go second tight end here or wait and grab another receiver?
I would wait on
think we
tight
need
end.
another running back right now.
Yeah, I'd rather wait on tight end. I do not like a lot of those guys at the top, and we can talk about why.
Agree. Yeah, I want to know why you don't like Irv Smith. I don't hate him this year.
I actually do like Irv Smith. If we do take a tight end, he would be the guy.
Let's see if he comes back to us.
Okay.
Who do you like here at wide receiver, though?
I think Pierce is fine. If you scroll down a little bit, Mims is okay.
I like Pierce.
Same.
I think it's another scenario where, hey, maybe that passing game's not bad, and he's going into his second year as potential, should be the number 2 behind Pittman, right? So,
yeah. So we end up with Irv Smith here. I do like him. He's by far my favorite tight end of that bunch.
Yeah,
it's not particularly close.
Does he have a different bye week than?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, let's grab him.
Smart to look at the buys. As we just
only for tight ends and quarterbacks.
Yep.
How dumb would we look if we just?
I've done it, dude. Hasn't happened on stream yet, but it's happened to me.
No, but I mean, how dumb would we look if we just talked about it for 5 minutes and we're like, run it, quarterbacks and tight ends, got to check the buys.
Yeah, really dumb.
Yeah.
But as far as Irv Smith goes, I mean, I like him a lot more than other tight ends in this range. There's just less questions, I think. Honestly, I think he's depressed because of the injury. And then, Minnesota goes out and invests in Hawkinson after Detroit couldn't figure out how to use him. And Irv Smith kind of just left for gone at this point. But this is a guy that is second-round draft capital, receiving tight end. Cincinnati, all their backup tight ends have been cut at one point or another. He has no competition, and he's attached to Joe Burrow. He's not going to have elite numbers, but, I mean, we've seen C.J. Uzomah and some other tight ends that are basically just a guy caliber players pop up for big games once in a while. And we don't need David Njoku or Travis Kelce numbers from Irv Smith. He's our tight end 2. What did we get him in the 14th round? We need a touchdown here and there, fill in the weeks where Njoku maybe has a down week. I think the upside's amazing. And then the alternatives, I mean, like Dulcich, I don't know if he even plays a full-time role. Chico Conquo, we'll see. Hopkins is going to steal some targets from him. I don't know how much he plays in the field. Kincaid's battling Dawson Knox. They play slightly different roles, but how much 12 are they going to be in? Tight ends historically take a long time to develop. Same argument for Laporta. I think there's a lot of upside with Smith.
For sure. And Jawan Johnson was there. He had a nice year in the end zone scoring, but if Michael Thomas is healthy, you have Chris Olave in his second year. Rashid Shaheed actually was somebody that showed flashes last season. There's a lot of competition there, not to mention in the backfield for some targets as well.
Not to mention in the tight end room where you've Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau, and they just brought back Jimmy Graham.
That's true. Yeah, that spot I don't like. The only thing with Irv Smith is, does Burrow come back and is he good? It's a calf strain. Hopefully he's good to go by the time the season begins, and we're not even worried about it.
Yeah. Seems optimistic. I guess we'll see. It's going to probably take a little bit. I don't think he plays in the preseason, but early indications are he'll be ready for the regular season.
Where are you at on the week 17 stacks?
I honestly don't think you have to prioritize it. When I go and look at my teams, I end up just like accidentally getting a bunch of them.
Me
I think
too.
if it's a tiebreaker, yeah, go for it. But otherwise, I mean, like, you're probably going to end up with a week 17 stack on accident. So like going out of your way, especially early in drafts, like don't worry about trying to force in week 17 stuff. A lot of it just happens on accident.
Absolutely. I have so many Browns, Packers, full out stacks. Like you can only play one quarterback, obviously, but I have a lot of the Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers teams with Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper, and then some of those cheaper guys later, because it's been super easy to get to them. And what if Deshaun Watson comes back and is really good again? It's not like he doesn't have the weapons.
Well, he's got great weapons, probably the best weapons of his career.
Yeah.
Or damn near close.
I think so. I mean, I guess he had
D-Hop. That's it. And Cooks.
What?
Well, he didn't play with Cooks, did he?
I didn't think it was Cooks. It was what's his name? The speedster who could never stay healthy.
Oh, Will Fuller. Will Fuller.
Will Fuller, yeah. But Will Fuller was never healthy.
No, I miss him. We're coming up here, looks like. What do we got? 5?
We're coming up in 4 picks. We've got 2 quarterbacks. We're done on quarterback. 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 2 tight ends. We have 4 picks to go here. What do you think? Rounding this out with 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, or something like that?
Yeah, I would definitely get more receivers. Running backs, I like Jeff Wilson a lot, actually. I think he's a solid pick. There's some pretty good receivers in this range, too. I'm probably looking at one of each right here.
John Mechie's interesting to me because we don't like Robert Woods stinks, and he's the de facto number 1 there. Let's go Jeff Wilson, and let's grab a receiver on the other side.
Love that.
All right.
I like Renfrow, too.
Do you? Renfro's a guy I'm not particularly high on because I just don't know if there's is there a ceiling there?
I don't think it's too different from when he had his big year 2 years ago. I mean, Adams is there for sure, but...
Do you care that we have Josh Jacobs?
Yes, a little bit. I also, my 2 receivers I would look here are either Mechie or Renfrow.
I like Mechie here on a team where we have no idea who the number 1 receiver is.
Yeah, let's go Mechie if he's there.
We got him.
Oh, Renfrow went right ahead of him too.
There you go. That works out perfectly. Now you don't have to sweat it when
couldn't even get him.
A big year and we lose.
Jeff Wilson, to speak on our picks a little bit, Jeff Wilson I think is going to play a role here. A lot of hype on A-Chain, but he just doesn't have the size to actually handle a full workload in the NFL. I can't remember how many games Mostert and Wilson played together last year. I believe it was 10, and Wilson outtouched him in 8 of the 10. That stat could be slightly off, but Jeff Wilson did outtouch Mostert in more games when they were both active. And then to the receivers, I think you laid out Mechie well. There's a chance like Dalton Schultz ends up being the wide receiver 1 there because it's so muddled. But I mean, He's a former 2nd-round pick. Unfortunate cancer diagnosis for him, but he's all clear of that. Talent's there, had an amazing career at Alabama. I mean, what's to say he just doesn't immediately step in as the 1?
Right. By the way, Zamir White just went in mid-16th round.
Damn, he's climbing.
Yeah, I haven't seen him go ahead of Chuba Hubbard very often, if at all.
That's too high.
That's a bit of a reach for sure.
I agree.
Yeah, it's Nico Collins, it's Robert Woods, not including Dalton Schultz. And then it's John Mechie and then Tank Dell. Like Tank Dell is a fun player, but he's what? 3 feet tall?
He's extremely small. I think he weighs 165 pounds. Like he's not much bigger than Tutu Atwell.
Yeah. By the way, to your point on Jeff Wilson, it's funny that the lineups where I've been trying to get Devon A-Chain the most are actually in Miami stacks because I think if he pays off, it's just going to be in space as a pass catcher instead of heavy work as a running back because of his diminutive stature. I look at it like this. Dude, once you get past Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who is there? Cedric Wilson, Robbie, formerly Anderson, Robbie Chosen, Braxton Berrios. They have no tight end to speak of. I think they could use A-Chain quite a bit in the passing game because they really only have 2 guys aside from that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That is a good point on A-Chain. I don't know who the hell they're going to have play that wide receiver 3 or what personnel formations they're going to use.
Yeah. Well, and A-Chain is perfectly suited for Mike McDaniel's offense, right? Just the fast, just prioritizing speed.
He reminds me of Mostert in a lot of ways, and Mostert a little long in the tooth right now. I mean, you're just getting an influx of speed, hopefully, that will fill the void of Mostert, who, I mean, he's still there, but we're not expecting Mostert to handle any sort of significant workload at this point in his career.
Mostert was so fast. He might still be, but he had the 2 longest runs by NFL Next Gen. He had the 2 longest touchdown runs in the league one year, and it was only like 2 years ago before he got hurt.
He was awesome, man. Preseason hero.
He hit like 22 miles per hour or something ridiculous.
For whatever reason, they used to think he sucked, so he would get a ton of run in the preseason. That guy was just a printing press.
You love preseason DFS.
It's God's game.
Gus Edwards went 194. I think that's great value on Edwards, given the precarious situation with J.K. Dobbins right now. Edwards is already a guy that averages 5 yards per attempt for his career. He averages 10 touches per game, or 10 looks per game for his career. I don't want him on our team, just given our build with Lamar and Zay Flowers. But I love that real late round Gus Edwards play.
Same. I like him a ton too. Really, really good value on him.
Yeah, he's free.
I cannot believe Shrewd is still here. I don't think we'd take him, but it's a little insane to me.
I mean, we have Mechie. It's up to you, dude.
We're pretty strong at quarterback. I'd look at receiver.
Yeah, I don't think we should. I think we probably see if we can pull a running back here, get us to 6.
Yes, I think Cordarrelle's fine. Oh, Pierre Strong is there.
Yeah, let's get Strong.
He's sick.
Well, I think he's particularly interesting now that it looks like Dalvin Cook could be going to the Jets, because there was always a possibility that Cook could land in New England with Ramondre.
Yeah, for sure. Is this our last pick here?
Yeah.
Probably looking at receiver, tight end.
I'm so tempted to take Isaiah Likely, but it's probably not the right play. The way I look at it is like from just a crazy, mega mind perspective. If Andrews goes down and we had Lamar with Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely, is that just an instant league winner?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe not.
I don't know. Tight end's a little weak. I do like Devontae Parker, like throwing flyers on Justin Ross, playing really well, it looks like.
Let's go with Ross here.
He's the funnest guy to talk about, dude. Immediate freshman breakout season, right on par with T. Higgins. Those guys were neck and neck at Clemson. As the devastating neck injury ruins his career, undrafted free agent, injury last year, and now he's been balling out. Beat reporters think he is an inside track to make the team. Makes sense to me with Tony's injuries. You probably want to keep an extra receiver there at the very least as insurance. He's got all the talent in the world, man. People just don't walk into Clemson's offense as true freshmen and put up 1,000-yard seasons.
So you're a fan.
He's got a lot to overcome. I mean, the guy has barely played football in 3 years, but what he did in college, like, guys just don't do that.
I love it. So what's to me interesting about the team that we built, and we can look over this, we actually went with 2 Kansas City receivers. I kind of love that because MVS, we saw MVS, I just don't think is going to be the guy. It's not to say he can't have a decent season, but I don't think he's going to be the guy. Juju's gone. I mean, Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney. We got 2 of the 4. I think it gives us a shot at maybe having one of those guys have a great breakout year.
Yeah, it's wide open there. I mean, to your point, we just want to take shots. We got 2 of them. I want players with Mahomes.
So we got Lamar Jackson. We got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. I love that. We got Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, Rachaad White, Damian Harris, Jeff Wilson, Pierre Strong rounding out running back. I like quite a bit there for the upside play. Receiver, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson, Zay Flowers to go with Lamar, Kadarius Toney, Alec Pierce, John Mechie, a lot of young guys. I love that. And then at tight end, David Njoku and Irv Smith. Maybe a little weak there, but I think we got good value on Njoku. Overall, I'm satisfied with this.
I am too. I like Njoku, last tight end in a tier for me. Actually have him slightly ahead of, I believe it's Darren Waller. I'll have to check on that. But I have Njoku ahead of somebody in my rankings who a lot of people don't agree with. So I think he's in for a really good season here. He's just ahead of Waller in half PPR for me.
Really?
Yeah.
So what would you call this build? I mean, I don't think there's a name for this build. Just good.
Good, balanced. We did take an early round quarterback. Could have something to do with that.
Yeah. If I were to say there were any weaknesses, because you're never going to get a draft unless you're just drafting with people that are somehow trying to collude and just landing you all the good picks. You're never going to get a draft where you feel 100% at every position. I love quarterback. I actually like running back a lot. I mean, if Rachaad White's my RB3 and Harris is the 4 who could be the goal line back in Buffalo, and Jeff Wilson, a lot of question marks there. Who knows? He might be a 10, 12 touch per game guy. We got him as the 5. The only spot I'd say I'm a little uncertain on, and I'm fine at tight end with Njoku and Irv Smith. I think Irv Smith's great value. Once you get past our top 3 receivers, it thins out a little bit. That's what happens when you draft running backs and quarterback early. We're definitely banking, if we want to win something significant, on a great rookie season from Zay Flowers or one of these young guys coming through for us in a big way.
And that's exactly how I want to build my teams.
Me too.
If young guys come through in a major way, I mean, a lot of them are likely to do so. Some of them will bust on the other side of that, but you just don't get a lot of upside with players like Tyler Boyd going into year 5 of their career or whatever it may be. You see players that sort of become what they are, if you will. And we want to hunt for those players that could be something more.
Well, this is a good draft, man. I think the first one we've done in the books is, what do you grade it at?
I think it's at least an A-.
I was going to go A- as well. I don't want to get overconfident. Yeah.
Right. A+ is the Millie winner.
Yeah, A++. Well, I'll go A- here. I feel good about it. I love that we got Rodgers and Watson. We got a single stack with both of them. Very nice. Even a little bit of, or not Watson, sorry, Lamar Jackson. A little bit of run back action too. I feel good. We'll go up in an A-, and Matt and I will be back with you next week doing another one of these. Remember, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow Matt at Matt_Gajewski on Twitter, me at Loughy_D. And if you're not on Underdog yet, first match deposit bonus, 100% up to $100. You're doubling your bankroll out of the gate. Get in some of these drafts. Hopefully we learned something today. All of us, you included. And we'll see you back here next Friday for another one. Peace.